Hey guys, got another unusual item for you today. I found these in another garage sale box of junk. They appear to be mercury switches, but they ain't got no mercury in 'em. And they're really long and the ends are wide open. I suspect that these were maybe quality control rejects that got pulled from the assembly line for some reason. Or maybe they were some sort of educational or salesman sample type thing for demonstration purposes. Pondering this got me asking, where did the mercury switch come from? So, mercury is a metal that is liquid at room temperature. Its melting point is negative 38 degrees Celsius, or negative 37 degrees in normal. Originally called quicksilver due to its flowing liquid state, it was named after the planet Mercury, since in medieval alchemy, metals were named after planets, and Mercury was named after the Roman god Mercury, who was associated with the quickness. Anyway, since it's a metal, it's conductive and can carry electricity, so it was used in tilt switches, like those used on the old-school thermostats. The earliest patent I could find for a mercury switch dates back to 1904 by a Percy Clark. Percy's design used a metal tube instead of glass. Electrical current would go into one side of the tube itself, but due to an insulating tab at the base, the circuit couldn't be completed. That is, until the tube was tilted, causing the mercury to flow to the other end of the tube, completing the circuit and letting the current flow. The sleeve thingy in the middle acted as a dam for the mercury, to keep it from flipping over too soon, and as kind of an anti-flutter device to keep the mercury from sloshing around back and forth. But these early switches did not last long before they wore out. According to the patent document, the tube had to be purged of air and contain a perfect vacuum, and even then the mercury would eventually oxidize, forming a powdery substance which would impede conductivity and cause the switch to fail. But Percy found that if he placed a small amount of oil in the tube with the mercury, the oil would absorb this oxidation powder, preventing it from contaminating the mercury. Percy estimated a 25-year lifespan on the switch before the oil had absorbed too much powder and would no longer be effective. I'm not sure when they first started making the tubes out of glass, but I found this 1922 design from a Phelan. This design used a likely complicated-to-form U-shaped glass tube. Louis also solved the oxidation problems that the previous inventors encountered by filling the tube with hydrogen gas, which would cause a tiny bit of the mercury to stick itself to the contacts, keeping them from corroding. Mercury switches would now have a nearly indefinite lifespan, provided the seal on the glass tubes never broke. The stylus switch that we know from our thermostats was invented by Harold Olson for Honeywell Corporation in 1937. These switches would be used in Honeywell's iconic round thermostat, which was invented in 1941 by Carl Cronmiller and Henry Dreyfuss. But the project was put on hold due to World War II, and the thermostats didn't release until 1953. The switch itself is attached to a bimetallic coil, which expands and contracts with temperature changes, causing the switch to move and either turn on or off the heat. And since the switch is just a blob of mercury moving in a tube, it's completely silent, so you don't hear a click or anything when it turns on. I guess people just liked things to be a little more quiet back then. The 1937 patent also calls out a double-throw switch version with 3 contacts in it, so power could go into one contact, and depending on the angle of the dangle and the position of the mercury blob, go out either the second or the third contact. Note the little bump thing in the middle of the tube. That acts as the anti-flutter mechanism, the same function as that sleeve we saw in the 1904 design. 2 of my prematurely born switches are these double-throw designs. You can kind of make out the insulator on the middle terminal, which keeps the mercury from making contact with more than 2 contacts at one time. Neat, but kind of worthless on these since they don't have the mercury in them and were never sealed. Yeah, there was some reason that these were pulled off the assembly line before they were finished. Maybe somebody at the Honeywell factory wanted to make a cyberpunk crack pipe out of them or something. Who knows? They're just an odd historical electronics artifact now. Mercury was largely phased out of thermostat switches in the early 2000s due to safety concerns, but I don't care about that. As long as the mercury stays sealed in the vial, it can't hurt you, so I'm hoarding every mercury switch thermostat that I can find. I also keep an eye out for these old carpenter's dreidels. Sometimes these had mercury in them to act as a weight and keep the plumb from bobbing. But it looks like somebody already took the mercury out of this one. Anyway, it's just something that I found interesting. So be sure you're subscribed if you also find odd stuff like this interesting. And check out the channel memberships if you want to gain early access to my videos. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.